Hi friends, it's me, Cosmo. I hope you're all having a wonderful and spooky weekend. Tonight, I thought it might be fun to tell a spooky story while we relax and get ready for bed. How does that sound? Good. Okay then. Well, I've been trying to think of a story from my life that could count as a scary Halloween story. But I honestly couldn't think of a supernatural story or anything creepy. But I do have a freaky story from about 5 years ago. And I think it's definitely a bit scary. Would you like to hear it? You would? Great. Okay, so I'll start off by saying this might be a little bit much for young kids. So if you have any, cover their ears. I'm kidding, but yeah, it's a bit freaky. So, about 5 years ago, I was working at my very first job, which was at this little pizzeria in a neighboring town. And yes, to answer your question, I used to make pizzas. And yes, people complained about pink fur stuck in their pizza crust. What was I gonna do? But that's another story. So, I worked there with about 5 or 6 other people. And I was the youngest of the bunch. But one of the guys that I worked with was this middle-aged guy that I'll call Paul, for the sake of the story. Paul was kind of shady. Yeah. And there were multiple instances of things from the pizzeria going missing. And even some money went missing from the cash register a couple times. My manager could never find, he could never really figure out who it was. And it was never anything overly serious or a lot of money. But these things happened enough that suspicions had been raised, and my manager was on high alert. Even I was accused and questioned. I know. But I certainly didn't do it. I was a pretty good worker, and I think my manager trusted me. I always showed up on time, and I even stayed late if needed. I was pretty trustworthy. So this next part happened when I wasn't working. So I'm just telling you what my manager told me. But apparently, one night, he was closing up with Paul and noticed that Paul had quite a nice wad of cash in his back pocket. And my manager asked where he got all that money from. Paul said that he had gotten the money from delivery tips because he was a delivery driver. But it had been a very slow night that night, so my manager checked out how he quickly asked Paul to show him the wad of cash, and I guess that started a screaming match, which ended in Paul throwing the money on the ground and my manager firing him right then and there. Yeah, kind of intense stuff. Apparently, Paul was furious about being fired. He also kind of admitted to stealing the money. But he was mad, and he threatened my manager a couple times before screeching out of the parking lot. And that should have been it. But it wasn't. So my manager tells me this story. About a week later, I'm working the night shift with him and one other employee when things start to get freaky. And now, the real story begins. It was a slow night that night. And at this pizzeria, we stayed open till 11 p.m. But this started at around 8. The other employee, I'll call her Kelly, she was out on delivery. And it was just me and my manager in the shop when we saw a car pull into the farthest spot from the store in the parking lot. There was very little light, so we couldn't see what kind of car it was. Also, the car's headlights stayed on, and the car seemed to still be running. So me and my manager just figured that whoever it was just waiting for someone or something in the parking lot. Which was shared with a couple other stores, by the way. We did keep an eye on it just in case it was a potential customer, but eventually we stopped paying attention. But the car stayed there for a long time. First like a half an hour, then another half an hour, and then another. And before we knew it, it was like, gosh, I don't remember, but like probably around 10 o'clock. And we were starting to clean up the store for closing. Kelly had come back from delivery around 9 o'clock, and we started to talk about the mysterious car in the parking lot and how they seemed to never leave. But then we got a call for another delivery. I took that call, and I could have sworn I recognized the voice. This person sounded kind of like Paul. And they ordered a large pizza for delivery, going to a house on the very outreaches of our delivery radius. And to a house that I had never seen come up on the map before. But I took the order anyway and told the person on the phone that it would be around 45 minutes. So when the pizza was all set for delivery, my manager sent Kelly back out with the delivery and continued to help me clean up the store. And now it was just the two of us yet again. But at one point, around 10 minutes after Kelly had left to go on delivery, it had occurred to me that I didn't see the car's headlights in the parking lot anymore. Yeah. They had been there when I had taken the call for the order, but seemingly had vanished after Kelly had left. But I hadn't been paying attention, so I wasn't sure exactly when they had disappeared. my manager also noticed that the lights were not there anymore and made a comment like, well, guess he finally decided that he didn't want any pizza. And we kept working for around 30 minutes. Until then came the knocking. So, this next part isn't going to make sense unless I briefly describe the store layout. It was a pretty small shop with all glass front. Yeah, with an all glass front and a glass door. There was a small dining area and a small hallway leading to a bathroom. And then there was the ordering counter. Once you were past the counter, there was the oven, then the pounding and making stations, then the fryers, and in the back was the walk-in freezer. And if you're standing at the counter looking at the back of the store, to the right, there is a small wall where the sinks were. You couldn't see the sinks from the store front, and you couldn't see the front of the store from where the sinks were. But behind the sink was another hallway that led to the door to the back of the building where we kept the garbage dump. So, me and my manager were doing our thing when we heard a loud banging sound coming from the back door of the shop. And we stopped, dead in our tracks. We looked at each other carefully. Well, yeah, we looked at each other slowly, and then slowly and carefully crept to the back door and listened. The banging had stopped. We waited about a minute or two, and then walked back to the front of the store. I was still nervous, but my manager seemed to think that it was a couple kids playing a prank on us. Which, I guess had happened a couple times before. So, we went back to the front of the store, but when we got there, something seemed off. I can't really describe it, but something just didn't seem right. I had the fur on the back of my neck stand on end, and I think my manager felt it too, because he seemed to really want to get closed up as fast as possible. Then, all of a sudden, blaring red and blue lights came streaming through the windows of the store, and 4 police officers came rushing in. Me and my manager immediately screamed and threw our hands up in the air, but the police officer stood down and told us that they had received a call from someone saying that they had witnessed someone acting suspicious and running around the back of the building and then running around the front before very quickly and sneakily entering the store. Me and my manager looked at each other, and the fear had set in. Where could they be hiding? And then it occurred to us. The bathroom. That's the only place someone could be hiding that we wouldn't have noticed them from the back of the store. We told the officers to check the bathroom, and wouldn't you know it was locked. They told whoever was in there to come out, but all they got in return was silence. I think they might have heard some shuffling or something, but No answer. They asked a couple more times, but then began opening the door by force. It didn't take long for them to bust through the door, and when they did, who did they find but Paul? He was acting very strange and began screaming and swearing at them and at us and telling the officers that he was going to kill them and all this crazy stuff. I think he was on something at the time, because I've never seen anyone act like that before. As far as we know, he wasn't carrying a weapon or anything, but it was still very scary. And then walked in Kelly. So, apparently, she had gotten back from delivery earlier than expected, because she realized that the house address she was going to just didn't exist. So she drove back as fast as she could to help us close up shop, mildly annoyed. But when she got back, she saw Paul creeping around the parking lot and sneaking into the store while we weren't visibly there. So she called the police. The car we had seen in the parking lot was also revealed to be Paul's car, but it was so hard to see it in the dark that none of us had put that together. Kelly also said that she could have sworn she saw him carrying something shiny in his hands, and she told that to the police, but they didn't find anything on him, and it was very dark in that parking lot, so she could have imagined it. But yeah, that was one of the scariest experiences of my life. I don't know what Paul's plans were, but I'm glad I didn't get to see them for myself. And I'm sure he was just planning to try to steal something, or I don't know, but he was definitely off. So, I don't know, it's hard to say. But anyway, if you have any creepy stories, let me know in the comments below. And I hope you have a wonderful night's sleep after that terrifying story. And I hope you have a wonderful Halloween, my friends. Sleep well. Yeah, we can go to sleep now.